All right, welcome to Catalyst Circle V3.2 working group session on July 28th. Who's got agenda topics? Because there wasn't an established agenda. Quasar, jump up.
I don't have any. I don't have the agenda in front of me or the topics, but we were supposed to be discussing the voting app. And can you not hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, we got you, mate.
We can hear
okay. Supposed to talk about the code freeze and how it applies to the changes that the funded proposer subcircle was able to put through in the proposal changes in IdeaScale, and then voting options for CCv4. And since Mike wasn't able to attend, I think it's wise for us to move forward as if voting will not be happening on the voting app. And that's my agenda.
For CCv4?
I wouldn't say that because Mike's not here, we can assume that it can't happen.
Okay. Can we assume that he said it shouldn't be a problem, that we should put our eggs in that basket?
It's not going to be an issue to be able to sideload in proposals or a separate challenge for it to be displayed into the voting app. But I guess the key thing is the timeline that we want to do this on. If we need to do it for Fund 9, for Fund 9 voting, we've already got a very small campaign window. I don't think that's possible. But there is also potential for, with enough time in place, to be able to spin up the voting with the DevOps all in place to be able to handle it and support us. So we might be able to do a separate voting event is the point. We can do a separate voting event, but it just obviously needs the right planning.
Okay, so that's great to know. That's kind of like the third time we've heard that affirmation. I think we should really talk about the vote itself then, like when and how. I don't know. I know that within the funded proposer subcircle, we're very keen on adding more reps, and that may piss people off, but at the same time, I feel like there's something that's an aspect that's been fundamentally lacking in the circle, is that there's not really broad enough representation. We have seriously strong communities, and it's hard for them to get their voice in. So that's just my contribution to the thought process.
Thanks, Steve. Kenrick, go ahead. You're on mute, sorry.
I haven't been part of the conversation about expanding the circle and inviting other communities to have representation. But as I've listened to the conversations, and while I see some positive aspects, I wonder if people have thought through what some potential negative aspects are. And it's challenging to define what a community is and make sure that that's...
Okay, so can you just mute yourself if you stop?
I got him.
It's kind of stressy, please.
It's challenging to define the boundaries of a community in an open way. And I think one of the things, there may be merits to considering additional reps, but I also think that it is critical that be objective functions of the community. The way they're defined right now, these are, clear roles that people have an open process to participate in. And I'm a little concerned that if you make that too flexible, you may end up with communities wanting to define kind of an exclusive club that is prohibitive and then becomes kind of negative.
I'd just like to jump in since Kendrick was responding to my remark. I agree with you, and yet you can say the same thing with the way that it is now, because, entirely in, just like the funded proposer position on the circle, right? Based on money and volume of votes, it should not be us, right? It should be the tech community. And I think there's like several different ways that the tech community does get their voice heard and can speak to the issues that all of the community wants to address. And so I really feel like, I'll just pick a country, Vietnam. Thousands and thousands and thousands of people are involved in Cardano in Vietnam, and it's hard to feel like they're represented properly. That's just my example there.
All right, Quasar.
Elias, please don't say that. And Kendrick also is here to discuss how we would look at compensation for the circle or incentive structures. So I'd like to say that I am here. I would like to hear what Kendrick has to say about that, and then the other guests that are here in regards to voting for representation. That's it for me. I wanted to point that out.
Okay, Reese.
Yeah, one thing the survey actually showed was that there needs to be more people in the circle. At least that's what the general consensus is. And I kind of agree with that as well. And one thing that came up is having people from various parts of the world. And I think it would actually be beneficial, although it might be hard to implement right now, but in the future, having something we discussed before, multiple circles where we can have the Eastern Hemisphere, we can have African circle, and it would actually enable us to get a lot more things addressed and a lot more stuff done, right? Because right now there are loads of obstacles and loads of problems, and we struggle to move fast enough to be able to actually tackle more than one thing, which it is what it is at this point. But it would be ideal if we could get more stuff done, and if that means that we should have better or more circles, more like disparate circles from around the world, then I think that's a good idea and something that we should look to implement.
Lloyd.
Thanks, Peter. Our team's here today by invitation from Felix. We're in that technical community, that development community that was just referenced a few minutes ago, and that we're building. That's what we're here. It's what we're doing. A lot of what I'm hearing is that you guys are lacking some infrastructure, and that's part of why we're here today, is to show you what we did infrastructure wise. What we have is it's actually in Fund 9 as a proposal for open sourcing the system that we built. And it's a voting system. It's up to you guys if you'd like to see. We literally have a 30-second long video that walks through the process. I could run the video if that's something you guys would like to see. I can show you the results of our first vote that we did. If that's okay for you guys, that's something that I could run with now. I see some thumbs up. So all right.
Yeah, let's see it.
Okay, very good. I'll share that now. Okay.
It doesn't have a sound.
Yeah.
When you go on Zoom screen sharing, there's a small checkbox
Okay.
in the share screen on the bottom left where you have to disable that it shares the sound with it as well.
Turn on original sound. That's what you needed?
Exactly.
Okay, very good. I'll start it over. Sorry about that, guys.
Still not.
You're gonna have to pull out of the screen share altogether and come back.
Okay. All right.
It's never easy.
No.
If you go on screen share, then the first window who pops up down in the bottom on the left side, you have share sound with a checkbox to it.
Okay. Yep, I have to there we go. And let me try that now. Sorry, let's see.
Yeah, it's on the bottom left of the window select when you're selecting your tab or window.
While we're looking at voting options, I believe that's what we're looking for. Let's see what's, make a little bit of a list of pros and cons. What's required? Is there a test net? The
Well,
wallets,
Yeah, the biggest thing is understanding requirements. What do you guys need?
something that everybody around the world can vote on with very limited experience in crypto.
Yeah, like a good UX. There you go.
Voting on the DripDropz platform is easy, safe, and fun. To get started, just navigate to the Governance Vote section of DripDropz. Once there, enter the wallet address or ADA handle for your wallet that holds Drip tokens. Then just click Start Voting. You will be presented with your voting power based on the snapshot taken. Check to verify that you are seeing the correct amount of voting power. Next, you'll be presented with a series of questions with multiple choice answers. Just select the option that you want to support and move through all the questions available. It is important that you provide an answer to all of the questions. If there are any questions that you don't feel comfortable making a decision on, then you will need to select the abstain option for those questions. Remember that this means that you are voting with the majority and you are agreeing that the option with the most voting power wins. Once all of the questions are answered, agree with the terms and policy and then hit Submit Vote. Nice and easy so far, but you're not quite done. On the next screen, you'll be provided with a wallet address to send ADA to and a dust amount of ADA. Copy that wallet address and put it in your wallet's send interface. Then go back, copy the dust amount, and put that in your wallet's interface as well. Once you complete that transaction, your vote is submitted. If you change your mind on any options, you can use the Change Your Mind link below. After your vote is counted, your dust ADA will be returned to you, minus the transaction fees. Thank you for supporting DripDropz and the Cardano community with your vote.
And so with that video, that was the entire walkthrough process. We started out by having a Medium article giving our timeline snapshots when voting opened and closed and when the results would be announced officially.
Your audio is a little low, Lloyd.
Okay. And we also, this is actually live on the DripDropz website. It was the actual ballot results. All of this vote took place on chain. It's entirely, every bit of that vote is entirely traceable, trackable, and it all happened on chain, including the ballot questions. That's the kind of important. The ballot questions themselves are stored on chain so that if someone comes in the future to review the ballot questions, that you could actually see the questions, the answers, and the results at any point in time, and anyone can do that. So that's our built solution that's running now that we used for our live vote back in May.
Thanks, Lloyd. That's great. Can I ask a question?
Of course.
Are those transactions then queryable? As in, can a person's vote choice be pinned to an individual?
Yeah, there's no anonymity. There's not really, it's not a side chain. It's fully auditable. We had to make a decision on day 2 of the voting whether or not to display real-time results to the user, just because it could be done by somebody, right? So it's totally doable. So we went ahead and did that, and we didn't notice any noticeable effect to the results. So it's still a steady trend. So the same trend we were seeing from the time we implemented it. It wasn't like, like an option that was losing a vote. Users were coming back and changing their votes to try and game it. So obviously that may change in a system longer term, but yeah, the anonymous voting part is not an option, I don't believe, at this point with this system.
Correct. Yeah, that's my understanding.
Your real bad. Like,
That may answer my question also. There's been talk within the group about the differences between, on the one hand, we're using one coin, one vote for the proposal processes. On the other hand, the circle reps right now have been voted on using a democratic process. Are you working on any security aspects of the voting that would address what Chris just said in terms of anonymity, but then also in terms of a decentralized identity so that you're not restricted to the one coin, one vote model?
well, you're not necessarily restricted. It's all snapshot based, right? So at the beginning of the vote, you have a snapshot. You can base that snapshot on whatever criterion you want, right? So are they holding this token of this policy? There's your did right there, right? Or NFT or whatever they're holding. So that's, and then what's the voting power based on that? Just, do they get one vote per NFT in their wallet, or do they get one no matter how many they have in their wallet? So there, but see, the problem with that is now you've got one vote per wallet. So you've got another problem. And this is why the one coin, the coin weight has such a, when you go one vote per person, you get they'll create more wallets. So that's why you
Exactly. That's what I'm referring to. In order to, you
Yeah,
have to have some civil attack defense in order to move away
Yeah,
from.
yeah.
that
I mean,
kind
like
of-
it's all arbitrary. So if you want, let's say you created the catalyst circle did, and that's what it was, and you guys did KYC, you totally vetted everybody you gave that did too, and when they resign, you know, they're supposed to send it back or something or whatever, maybe, you know, or you issue a whole new one. But you basically, that did's going to have a policy and an asset, and you say that's what I'm basing my voting power on. And any wallet that's holding this, they get one vote each. So it's easy. So this system will support that. You can snapshot whatever we want, fungibles, NFTs, and then assign power. However, I mean, we could do it ADA, we could do, you do weird stuff. You could say, if they've got this NFT and 2000 ADA. So now, you know what I'm saying? So now maybe you've got, like, if you impose some requirement for some weird reason, and I'm not saying to do that, I'm just throwing arbitrary logic out there just to show the flexibility of the system.
I think it's nice and simple. So that's great. I was thinking of features that we would need, and the one person, one vote, or is like a point of discussion. I agree, but realistically, right now we need participation, because in the last vote, Carl, I think you were there. I'm pretty sure you were actually.
Yeah, no,
we
that is
had
the problem.
100 people vote for
Absolutely.
general ADA, and then we had 20 vote for SPOs.
It's participation. Participation
That is
gives-
not good enough. Yeah.
Participation
So-
gives you legitimacy.
Yeah,
And so
Yeah,
it's easy
and-
experience for the community to participate. There's no excuse for them not to have participated. And
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Gamification is something that we need to know, we need to think about, right? But that isn't as much of an obstacle right now as it, in my opinion, as just getting people through the door and getting people fucking involved with it, because that's an actual problem right now that we have. Sorry for swearing. I realize we're recording
Right on,
now.
mate.
Well, no, I mean, it's cool. I don't mind it, but I mean, this, I'm sure you guys are probably gonna.
It's more
put
for
it-
it's more for YouTube, but
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that's the real issue, right? Right now we
Well-
don't have people getting involved, and that's what we need to try and address, I think. And if this is a nice simple tool that everyone can use, then fantastic, something we can implement now. If you guys have already built it, like why not use it? You know, I mean, why not give it a try? We can worry about sticking stuff in Catalyst because of the lead time for actually doing that kind of thing, implementing it. We can worry about that in the next iteration. And so that gives everyone a bit of breathing space. So I think it's a good option, definitely. The only thing that well, the low to no cost thing is good, right? I don't think anyone would complain about sending 2 ADA as a way of voting. So I don't really see that as much of an
I
obstacle.
believe they get most of that back. They're just paying a transaction fee. I've got a
Yeah.
double
Yeah.
check.
Sorry.
problem. Yeah.
It wasn't, I understand that they get it back. One thing I do want to know is about changing votes. Like, should we enable people to change votes, or?
I think that's an option that regardless of what you decide, we could enable that, right? That's no big deal. That could be
Yeah.
a vote.
I'm tempted to say no, to be honest with you, because if we're showing results afterwards, that might encourage people to actually change results to conform. I know you're saying that doesn't really happen, and I kind of agree that people probably wouldn't be bothered with that kind of stuff anyway. But
Yeah, but this is really political, and it can't. I get you.
I know, yeah, and that's the difference between you guys voting on your proposals for DripDropz and something like this, where you never know what people are where people are coming from when they make their decisions, right? So yeah, maybe something to think about, but I don't really see that being too much of an obstacle either. The other thing was bollocks. I've forgotten what it is now. All right, well, don't worry. I think it's a great option. I think we should give it a go. Building the transaction. So right now, you're saying that they have to go and actually send the transaction in their wallet themselves. And I know that's not really an obstacle. But in future, not, or maybe it's too much to implement now because it can just be a pain to fiddle around with that if you guys are really busy with other stuff. But being able to just build that transaction and just sign it automatically if they're connecting their wallet anyway might be something that would just reduce friction.
have
But
that
I mean,
capability.
it's a minor,
We do.
really.
Yeah, I think Adam's re-architecting the way we're gonna do voting, or to enhance security. So that's something that really he can probably better answer to, but it may make sense to pull him in and have a really good in-depth discussion because we got so much on our pipe that we really do have to prioritize what we're doing. So
Yeah,
understand
obviously.
timing and all that stuff is good. But I really want to stress this and we can definitely enable one person, one vote, and it'll work. It's no problem because we're here with the people that are going to be using it. We see each other's faces and names, but I don't believe that will scale well. And if it does, it needs to be something that does with thought. So if there's this idea that there's going to be thousands of these dids, you know what I'm saying? That's probably something that's easier gained. And I'm just thinking of that from a
Yeah. And
skeptical perspective.
sorry to jump in, but I just want, because I brought up the question of security, I just like to respond to that because the security questions around Sybil attacks and voting are actually pretty challenging. NFTs are part of a solution, but I'm not sure that they solve the problem.
No, like collateral and you get political pushback on that too. So like we made a conscientious decision at DripDropz to implement what's called an S curve on our wallets because we had a lot of people who were just creating a whole bunch of wallets just so they could get that extra drip so they could go and dump it on the DEX because it was profitable. And there you go. But so then we put a curve in place that required them to have a minimum amount of ADA, and then they got not everything they could have gotten up until that point. That drove it solved the problem. A lot of the farmers went away, but obviously we took the revenue impact. But that's part of the tokenomics. We didn't want that extra individuals who were just coming taking advantage of the rest of the participants of the ecosystem. So
yeah. All right, hey, let's get to the hands. Hey, Dagwell. And then Felix.
Hey, thanks. I really like the system. I think that the fact that it is DripDropz, which is pretty strong brand in the ecosystem, I think that will drive participation. So I think that's an added bonus. My question really got answered about the transactions. I had another question about, is there a possibility that we could register a certain amount of wallets for a whitelist, possibly like a snapshot for a period? So that way, at least we can kind of maintain.
That's exactly what it is. It's snapshot driven voting. So what's the criterion? How are you doing this? Are you just giving a list of wallets? I mean, I suppose that's the snapshot. There you go. It's just wallets with the voting power. So it would be a wallet address with an integer, which would indicate the power relative to the other integers, right? So maybe they're all just one. So that is, if you want to go that step, that's easy. But the easiest way to do it is just stick something in that wallet and take a snapshot based on what's in the wallet.
Oh, for sure. And I'm totally on par with that. It's just what I'm asking is, as far as like people like being able to make other wallets, if you're going to go that route, I was just wondering, is there a way that we could whitelist and we could have, so we can know our voting pool? That's my, so we can kind of control that parameter.
Like wallet registration?
Yes.
I don't see why not. It's just it's not snapshot based now. You're doing another process to confirm and validate a wallet. Which is not something that I don't know if we have docketed or not. It's something we can discuss internally and maybe we'll come up with an angle of why that's great or not. But if you just want to say give us a CSV of here's the wallet addresses and here's their voting power, that's the snapshot. So we just bypass the snapshot with.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
From another perspective, also say DripDropz might be the best for now solution to show a direction which it could go to via voting. And one point there is, Kyle Lloyd, you have a proposal for Fund 9 to open source the voting app, right? How much time would it take for you to open source and also is the open source part for the whole tool, for everything included? And cool. How much time would it take you to open source the whole tool?
So the open source and can you see if Lath can hop in here? Because he could talk more about how he wants to package that. But that's going to be something that Adam and Latison would team up on. And so we would have to dock in their schedule. So assuming that funding comes through, we could do it pretty quickly, but it's a lot of documentation that Adam's got to get together and that aspect of it. But to my understanding, the way they were planning on packaging that was something that you would need somebody who can spin up a node, right? Somebody somewhat technical, like a DevOps guy or a SysOps guy. Basically just spin up a Docker container, and that would be essentially, you would host your own voting as a service system. So challenge there though is you'd have to keep it up, right? You can't drive millions of people to it or hundreds of thousands or whatnot, because so that you could do it yourself. There's no cost in open sourcing that, but the reliability of, I don't think we're going to be hosting that infrastructure, but that's what Latison would have to answer that. So
Yeah. I don't know if my audio is any better now. Hopefully it is.
but if we're funded, we do it fast.
Exactly. Yeah.
We have some deadlines that we have to hit in October. So we would have to docket it and see exactly what would needed, but to my understanding, it's not a lot of work from what these on side, which means it's an Adam task, and so we'd have to figure out your timelines. But I think we can move pretty quick.
Sweet.
But
Chris?
we have a lead customer too that needs it, so it looks like they may be moving to do and actually use our platform, and then roll into voting as a service too. So it's definitely at the forefront of our radar.
Okay. Chris, you got your hand up? You're muted. Sorry.
That's right. It's almost like a speed car went past me as well. Yeah, the timelines. I think what's critically important here, in terms of if this was a solution that was going to be used as the circle election for CCv4 is intended on being, I guess, within the next few weeks or 2 months, or whenever we're going to put an actual pin on it.
Okay.
So that's one thing to couch. The other bit is I guess it's great to be able to try to get more adoption and more participation, but is there a risk that there's going to be less participation than what's already on the Catalyst voting app?
Less participation or more?
Is there a risk there's less participation with DripDropz than there is through the current participation on the voting app?
I think it depends on how it's promoted. I mean, is the app are you guys doing push notifications from your app? How many downloads do you guys have? I mean, you see what I'm saying? Is that like a tool that you guys and you've got that many people voting?
Yeah, I mean, communications through the voting app. Yeah, there are push notifications enabled in it. There are, there's other real estate. There's loads of different venues in which we can use to promote the elections. Right?
Yeah.
That I don't think is too much of a challenge. I'm just conscious of if one of the objectives is to drive up participation, we need to make sure that the solution that's being used is an improvement on what the alternatives are, right? That's the thing that I'm just trying to wrestle with. So, I know you said you had like 2,000 users in the first vote, which is awesome. I mean, maybe we can do a comparison in terms of how many users are being used across the different tools.
Sure. Yeah. No, for us, it was a unique case. It was specific holders of the drip token, right? So relative to circulating supply, I think it was over 20%.
It was
awesome.
Pretty impressive turnout. Yeah. But the takeaway is the user experience. How many followers do we have on that Twitter account? 35,000 plus. It's we've had a pretty substantial reach and can help promote. But to target objectives. Yeah, I mean, I think we could increase participation just with the user experience of how easy it is to do.
I mean, I'm just looking at Quasar's suggestions. I'd love to do some experiments.
Well, here's
e-
Lance.
even
We can talk
even
more
sort
about.
of closed experiments between us, right? Like, and then I think what part of this is the proof's in the pudding a little bit, right? Like, we've got to be able to use it. We've got to be able to feel like this is the right solution.
Well, sure.
to
You know,
know how it
So
works.
we got to 22.6% of the voting supply that voted using the token. So that's a very decent. I know. I actually happen to know that's higher than a lot of real world voting for midterm elections. That's significantly higher than that. So
You're muted, Reese. If you're talking, but you've been muted for a while.
So, but yeah, I'm glad Lathisen was able to join us. He may be able to answer some more specific questions that you guys may have regarding like deployment timeframes to get to spinning up what you would need to be able to run the circle vote. So, you know, Lath, if you guys are okay with that, we can have Lath. If maybe you could speak to that for a few minutes. What would it look like if Circle needed in the next couple of weeks, or say next couple of months, a instance to perform a vote of their choosing? What would it take for us to spin up the architecture and, you know, give them a place to perform a vote?
Right. Hi, everybody. Do you know the number of questions you're going to have on your ballot?
It's like,
I guess it'd be one vote per group.
Yeah, like an election for people that are going to be represented in the circle.
Right.
7 to 15.
So 10 to 15 questions, assuming like, who would you vote for position X? And then you got 5 people or something in the show.
Right.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
And is it ranked choices, or is it just whoever you, one person per question group?
Yeah, one successful candidate per group.
Okay, great. And do you have any problem running this through DripDropz, like the same way we ran it on our system?
No, we're just looking for a solution.
Okay.
So what?
And
Yeah. What that means though is that this takes us outside the voting as a service and puts us into a realm where if it's a time urgency, we could potentially post it on DripDropz. And
that's what I was alluding to.
get it
Because
done fast. And
if
so
you-
that's about a week's worth of work on our end.
yeah. And do you know what you will be using to vote as the power? For example, does everybody qualify, or do you want to use a token like we did with DripDropz? Because we would need to take a snapshot and say, okay, when the snapshot is happening, this is the token they're going to be used to vote. And for example, if they had 100 coins, that's 100 is their vote power. So that's how we ran DripDropz. And we could do it with Ada as well, but then it will be a massive snapshot across the whole thing. I need to run it by Adam, but it depends on entirely what you want.
This is a point of discussion, whether we should have weighted voting or one per wallet, one per person.
Like
so
everybody gets
we're not
one.
really sure at this point. We're trying to figure that out. What would be best?
Well, who should
That's
have who should have the most say? And like, for example, if you're using Ada, similar to voting on a protocol parameter change, the people with the most stake gets to decide, you know, I guess, do you want something like that for yourself, or are you aiming for everybody gets a fair one vote and then the total number is the
There's a massive political debate. So if you guys can paint a target, we'll hit it, but you got to paint it. We can't hit
exactly.
it.
So from a technical point of view, I was asking these questions to figure out the scope of the work. And like Kyle said, if it's a urgency and if it's based on some 10 to 15 questions, not an issue. And then assuming that you have a handful of choices for the user, let me explain how we did the initial version in case you're not familiar with it. We create a nameless token similar to the CIP 27, you know, the royalty standards. You know, we create a policy and then mint a nameless token on it. And that token minting metadata will contain the actual ballot questions. The purpose of this is that so everybody can verify using the chain, this was the ballot that people were voting on, because that laid out the question index and the answer or choice indexes so that each user's vote can actually be verified by just looking at the chain data. That was transparency was important for us. Now, if you said there'll be 100 option, that's going to make it a little difficult because that will blow the metadata size out of proportion, you know, opposed to what's available for us to work with. But 10 to 15 with a few people's names in there should be okay. It'll be great. And the voting system right now exists as a proprietary system within DripDropz. That's the current version 2 iteration of what Adam started, which is called Swokra. And version 3 is what we wanted to work on through the Catalyst proposal. So that's why I wanted to know, do you want the full version that we're working on in the future? Or if it's something that you want to do right now, that next week, we can use the existing system.
I think maybe, for us is they may have an urgent need now, and then just similar to our existing lead customers, right? And then pipe them into the voting as a service a couple months.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
that may be the thing. And then that gives them the opportunity to get an election out of the way while providing them ample room to evaluate purposes.
Let's see if I can pull Adam in, because it'll be very useful. He can help shape this. So I'm
Adam.
more of the,
Yeah.
I'm more of the tech side of thing, and he's more of the thinker about the vote and all the caveats that I may have missed. So let me see if I can grab him.
Yeah. This will be a good discussion if we can get Adam.
For sure.
Sweet.
But if you guys
Let's
want
run-
to keep going through questions, that we'll
Yeah,
keep-
I'll answer everything I can. Go.
Can you let
Guys, can I just raise something? I appreciate everybody's time here. How much time do we want to spend on this topic for the remainder of the time of this working group meeting?
I think this is quite important to figure out for the next vote. It's just impending at this point. Like, we're looking at the next couple of weeks, like a month, maybe if we do it at the end of the voting period, or I think 2 weeks if we do it at the beginning. So I think this is quite important to sort out while we got people here. It would be nice to have a real understanding of the scope of work and a timeline for it. So I think it's worth us spending our time. I don't know what you guys
Everybody else?
feel about that.
Anyone opposed?
To spending more time talking about what specifically?
CCv4 election procedure and all what we've been talking about.
Okay. Well, no, not opposed to it.
You had your hand up. You can go ahead and run with that.
Okay.
Then.
So in order to vote, this is for the circle. It's not Cardano wide. It's really Catalyst wide. It's for Catalyst circle. If we can attach these to accounts and IdeaScale, does that help define the way that we're moving? And with the deadlines approaching, do we want to try to do a smaller version here for F9? And I put in the chat, maybe it's just one question. Should there be a parameter change to help support Circle and Catalyst as a whole, as opposed to all of the candidates running? If it's a parameter change for funding, then I think that answers what Kenrick and a lot of us want to find some path of resolution to. And then when it comes to the voting out for Catalyst, is it possible to put the circle votes in the beginning front side of it before people can vote on proposals? They have to submit the circle vote before they can submit the votes for the proposals.
No, there's no new dev that can be done on the voting app in time. But what we can do is we can make sure that the first challenge that people are presented with is the Catalyst circle elections, for example. There's no problems in the UI to be able to make sure, in the same way that you would have seen the Catalyst natives challenge be the first challenge when we did COTI, we can leverage that UI there for circle elections if we were to go that way.
There is a.
Yeah, I mean,
Sorry, Carl, go ahead.
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just thinking, based on what Quasar said, if it's meant to be voted by a certain select group, there's two things we can do. You can.
It's not by a select group. It is Cardano holders, but you know, just being realistic, we have a subset of Cardano community that are participants in Catalyst, and those are most likely to be the ones that are going to participate in this vote.
Yeah,
not to say that the whole of Cardano might not. But you know, it's not to be. It is to be accessible. And
sorry, Adam's not available, so we can. He just came out of a surgery yesterday, so he might not be able to make it. Okay, I was just thinking, like, maybe Adam can confirm this, but we might be able to figure out who participated in Catalyst, and then they are the people who have the votes. For example, one of the way we did the snapshot for drip token is that we said who held the drip token in their wallet during the snapshot, and then their power was how much they were holding. Quite similarly, when you talk to him, we can figure out if who participated in Catalyst, and maybe they're the one who has to say, and then the amount of their power is based on how much they contributed, or in terms of like number of votes they did, or something clever like that. That's one option, and then that becomes the vote power. Other option is,
Go ahead. I got an option.
okay, yeah. Other option is we make it participation, voluntary opt-in. So we run a page where like register to vote, and then say this is also ensures the Franken-Actress attack won't happen, because we don't want someone to create a Franken-Actress with a wallet with a huge sum and then skew the vote, right? So the way this would work is you register and say, I would like to participate in this, and you get a token. Like we come up with a new token, just say, see Catalyst circle vote 1 or something. And then people voluntarily come in to show their interest in wanting to participate, so they get that token, and then snapshot is easy.
Yeah.
You know the policy ID and the token, and snapshot that, and then your power is one per person who wanted to do it.
I mean, couldn't we do something like, I mean, and another option could be, Kazar, you were on to it with the IdeaScale, export the email list, right? Now we've got an email list. We could send everybody an email, say, click here, get your token.
We already have all their wallets because it's already there in IdeaScale. Everybody put a wallet into IdeaScale when they started. So you literally just take the list of wallets.
There you go.
Plus, we have the email in IdeaScale as well. So we pair the wallet with the email. Now we've all kind of done a pseudo KYC verification.
You need to be real. You need to be real careful with that though, because that might piss off a whole lot of people.
There's a massive GDPR issue there.
Yeah.
Well,
there is no authority for cat, unfortunately. Like as much.
Well, nobody's providing.
I used to love like firing out messages to entire email lists.
No, yeah,
we can't do that in Catalyst Circle anymore, right?
Well, that's why it goes through IdeaScale. We're not firing out an email list.
IdeaScale's license is with.
They wouldn't do that. They couldn't do that.
well, the other thing is IdeaScale is not secure. Like even within the proposal assessors process, we get thousands of spammed assessments. And so the idea that you're going to have some spamming proof on the voting process by registering this way, I don't think is realistic. I understand the community has a desire to move away from one coin, one vote. I've worked pretty hard on providing some solutions to that. But at the same time, I see one person, one vote is a complete non-starter. It doesn't, there's no secure way to do it.
Yeah.
B, there's no way for any, you end up with some centralized authority that decides whether you're a member or not. So
just like
it's all
every voting
permission.
system today, every voting system that exists today has a centralized authority that issues the voting cards.
My own view of this problem at this point is that for this election, we are going to need to use one coin, one vote. And I understand that that's kind of, there's going to be people who gripe about it, but that's where we are right now.
Well,
And then so let me finish. But then I also think that given the foundations in the literature, given the foundations in practical applications, there needs to be movement towards the quadratic voting, or what's now being called plural voting. And SnapRilla has committed to having that working next year. You know, they have a voting system that they're going to demonstrate next month, but they're also clear that they haven't built the security yet, but they also have a plan to do that. So if IOG and DripDropz can also be working over this next year on the security issues and the development of the quadratic voting processes, I think that would really move the community forward to a more constructive process for this.
from our end, it's just an equation. Give us the equation, we can put it in. If you want to try it now, we can do it now. If you want to try it on this, we I mean, it's just the math that we can implement any curve to weight the voting that we want. And so we can do a minimum. You got to have 50 ADA and Anybody with more than 100,000 ADA, it tails off drastically, or 10,000 or whatever. So we can start.
So then I think the thing to work on is the security around Sybil attacks and the security around how you register people as authentic members of the community. Those are the two hard problems.
It's well in work for us right now. Those are issues that we're
right.
actively in development on. And
That's
so
And I would
Maybe-
encourage you
but
to
maybe
take a
also
closer look at the plural, what they're calling out plural voting. There's a community called Radical Exchange that, is actively working on developing these techniques.
Mhm.
And included in your suite of options.
thank
But
you.
just,
Yeah, I'll definitely check it out.
Just one thing, we don't have a lot of time, nor in the call, nor to the voting. Maybe let's focus on immediate next steps and what we can do. And there's a bunch what we have to explore and to figure out. But maybe let's focus on, okay, what can we do now already in the improvement to the last votings, which we had for the circuit.
I'm going to dive in there, Felix. I completely agree. And the fact is, we don't have a lot of time to mess around with it. We know going in, Quasar, stop pulling faces at me. We know going in that this is an experiment, right? It's like the strap line of Catalyst. So let's not worry about what voting is applicable. Let's do Occam's razor, one wallet, whatever the contents of your wallet is, just like Catalyst is how we do the vote. Yeah, people will disagree, people will agree, but it ultimately, we just need a decision to be made. It's the simplest way to implement it. Anyone can take part, but ultimately it's down to how much ADA you hold for how many points you have, just like Kenrick was saying. Quadratic voting right now is that kind of out of the question without any messing around. So let's not stress about that too much. Yes, it will upset people, but we need to have something implemented. It's more important that we have something working and it can roll out, right? So save everyone having loads of homework. We should just do weighted voting exactly how it is right now, one ADA, one vote, and just see what happens. It doesn't, what's the worst that can happen? Some people get voted in and then they have work to do as part of the circle. Like, that's not really going to be such a big issue that we're going to be arguing about it in 3 months, right? I don't think it's that big of a problem. I think getting something out and getting it working is more important at this stage.
So Reese, I just got confirmation from Adam. We can take an epoch snapshot. That will take a snapshot of every wallet that has ADA and the amount. Like you said, 1 ADA is equal to 1 vote. That is the power. And then you just got to literally decide, when do you want to take the snapshot? Do you want to announce in advance so that people can accumulate ADA in preparation for it, or maybe not? Just announce it that snapshot has happened after you've taken it, and decide on the question, send it to us, and we're ready to go within a week, give or take.
Sweet.
Yeah,
Let's get to hands.
That's great.
Quasar.
I'm not going to abandon the idea of one account, one vote, because I don't think it's not as controversial or difficult as we're making it out to be. As general ADA holder rep, the one account, or at least the move towards it, is very important. And are we sure we want to try this with the circle compared to the last funds that have happened with all of these other groups throwing up circle support proposals and just, making IdeaScale quite difficult as well?
So just to pick up on that, Quasar, is the question, should the election just be about election candidates? Was that your final question?
No, for me, I think the election, for if we wanted to do something for Fund 9, a great way would be a yes or no. Should circle explore multiple voting, but specifically, should this be something that is a parameter change, or it's the compensation is an issue for a lot of people. Is the vote there to create a circle role that is covered by parameters like challenge teams or PAs and CAs? That's a yes or no. I think that could happen pretty easily. The weighted voting is worth exploring and discussing more on other calls, I believe.
All right. You got that down, Chris? You good?
Yeah, I'm making notes. My battery's run out on my laptop, so I'm making notes on my phone.
Perfect. Reese, you're up. Let's go.
Yeah, sorry, my hand was actually just left up from before, but it doesn't really matter ultimately whether we do one wallet, one vote, or one ADA, one vote, right? We can potentially do both, is what Kyle and Lloyd are saying. So we can discuss that, like just try and figure that out outside of this call. I completely agree, but for the sake of just having that in, why not just run with the solution, right? It's already built. Kyle, Lloyd, they're saying it could be ready to deploy in 2 weeks, or give or take, so we can actually have it running for this fund. And like, why not run it? Why not just do it, right? We can try and figure out other solutions or other ways of gaming. It doesn't matter if we do a one wallet, one vote, or one ADA, one vote. There are ways of potentially gaming it one or swinging it one way or the other, either by having heavy deep pockets or by having loads of wallets, right? So either way, there could be some kind of dispute, but we just need a decision to be made. So let's just test it, right?
Let's call it a pilot.
A silent snapshot taken prior to any announcements would stop any wallet gaming, because the wallets would already be in existence. You would simply say that your wallets were in existence by this day, therefore you have a vote.
Exactly.
And that was what I said before, right? And that's it. We just need to take that snapshot, that epoch, or the epoch before the snapshot that's taken before it's announced, or whatever. It doesn't really matter. We can take it whenever. Obviously, we want to take it as at the time of the announcement or just before, so that removes the gamification. It's more the point that we're making about one wallet, one vote is that I have 5 wallets, so therefore I could potentially have 5 votes, right? Which is kind of naughty, but that's the risk. Was the only point I was making. It's not that people would then go out and have to track another 30 seed phrases just for the sake of getting Kyle voted in or something like that,
It gets worse. That's why I raised the concern, is that it's not just that you can create 5 wallets, it's that malicious actors can create thousands of wallets for the purpose of doing damage to the community.
Yep. Right. Yeah. But that's completely mitigated if we already have the snapshot, right? Or at least it's reasonably mitigated. It's not perfect, but it's something, right?
Yeah. If you did
I would just want to interject here. It might be interesting to do it this way and let ourselves be attacked just to smoke out the assholes, right? And see how and why and what for.
And I agree with that. Like, there's only so much damage that can be done. It's not like it's going to cost everyone loads of money, or it's not going to break the system. It's just going to dictate who gets voted in, and that's not necessarily such a big deal. We can be the experiment with that.
Well, we're using our platform. We don't want a game, right? That's our reputation too. We're putting out there. So,
yeah, exactly.
I'm obviously not saying you go into, right? I'm just saying
there's
only so much that can be done in quickly, and so we need to choose which risk we take.
Well, we could do, I don't know if this is controversial or not, but we do what we do at DripDropz is we require every address to be staked. Right now, there could be something where you could even go back and say the address should have been staked for n epochs, right? Some sort of you're not brand new, and then do a snap. But there's a lot of different parameters that we can figure out, but it just doesn't have to be a raw snap. There can be conditions.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we can accommodate every requirement you have, from at least for the text side. You just have to figure out what those requirements are. Like you said, it could be a silent snapshot, so nobody has a chance to make multiple wallets. If it's wallet based, if it's ADA based, again, that's good. If someone's really want to swing the vote, at best they're going to go buy a lot of ADA off the market and get it out of the exchanges. It's whatever you want to do, and you can add condition to it. Okay, fine, it's one wallet that must be staked, at least earning rewards. So that's at least 3 epochs worth newness.
Yeah. All right, back to hands. Dagwell, New Mind Flow. Let's please work through the hands before we get back off the rails again.
Thank you, JP.
I really appreciate that.
We try to keep comments quite succinct.
Especially on the snapshot and the snapshots with the wallets. I think if we have a token that's minted that we can either control or at least know the supply in paired with the wallet, I think that's really going to cut a lot of stuff out. But I wanted to ask a question for Lathan with as far as you guys were telling me that you use the 777 metadata, the royalty key. Now, usually that's just an address that you want the royalties to be staked to. In this instance, are you guys using like a script address as the royalty, address? You guys are using a wallet address, and you guys have like a metadata transaction that you're like a template that they're submitting in each transaction, or how exactly are you guys processing that metadata?
Yeah, sorry, I used the example, it's a 77 index as an example. It's got nothing to do with royalties. It's only the process that is similar. So so when the ballot questions and the options for each question is confirmed, we mint that as a nameless token. That is the ballot, right?
Perfect.
Every time a user is voting their choice, we capturing into a buffer, and then when you process them in batch, and then their choices are then minted as the nameless policy ID dot vote or something. That means that there is a buildup of at least in the, what's it called? If you're tracing it through the DB sync, you can follow it and then see that every user's individual vote shows up as a transaction metadata containing their choices they made on it. And so exactly. Then you can track every single user. If a user said, hey, my vote didn't get counted, we can tell you, actually, here you go, there it is.
Bet you did. All right.
It's perfectly auditable because of the way it's built. So yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. I just need to understand that from the dev guy.
Of course. Anna Maria and Rares.
Thanks, Lloyd.
Yes.
Yeah. Hi. So part of the reason why we're here is that we were talking about creating like a redeemable NFT for everyone who votes in Catalyst. So, and part of that, we would need to get all the data from the chain because that's visible with the voting rewards for everyone who voted, and making that sort of a whitelist.
Yeah, that's quite easy.
Yeah, we were thinking that we could tie that in with the voting itself, because part of this discussion was how to incentivize people or how to get people to participate, right? So we were thinking that if the voting is a totally open system, you might end up with actually fewer people taking part than if it's you have to take steps to ensure that you're eligible to vote, right? So you vote in Catalyst. Based on that, you can redeem an NFT, which is like a voting sticker, which we wanted to present to the group today, but sticking to the voting issue. And then based on that, having that NFT in your wallet, you get to vote on the Catalyst circle representation. Because as I think Quasar was pointing out, this is ultimately a vote that doesn't concern the whole Cardano community. Everyone in community is welcome to vote, can eventually participate in it if they first participate in Catalyst, then redeem their token, so everyone can theoretically participate. But ultimately, those people who are actually interested and involved in the Catalyst system get to vote. And then you simplify. You don't need a snapshot of the whole blockchain of the entire wallets. It's
so this is
more or less per person.
Yeah, so sorry, I just wanted to interject quickly. I feel like this is no different from the option I presented earlier, which is you have an open registration where people show up to register, and then we can create a token for the user tied to their actual wallet so that no Franken-Actors attack would happen. And therefore, you eliminate the people wasting time showing up to a vote that doesn't matter, and there'll be people complaining, hey, I didn't know this was happening, therefore I didn't do the first initial vote, now I can't vote on the new one. So if you said early on said, actually, this is how we want to operate, there's a period where people come in to register and you get your token, and each token is one vote, and only the people who registered can vote. And then you say that these are the tokens will be used to vote on the Catalyst circle in the future. Now, the problem with this is that because it's open and people know this is happening and how it will be used, multiple wallets could be created to game it, and you don't know who's who.
Exactly.
Well,
and so, yeah, it'll allow some gamification of the system. But this is all philosophical questions regarding the decision on how you guys want to count the vote, which ultimately fall outside of the technical discussion of whether or not this is the system to use to perform the vote or not. So, but yes, I mean, your option is absolutely a viable way with the caveats of, that it could go that way.
Yeah, exactly. But if you have an open registration, that can be gamed in a way. But if you condition registration to first having voted in Catalyst, that could also drive participation in Catalyst in a way.
It could.
But they're
Absolutely.
the same, because, again, we already have hundreds of accounts that have been created in Catalyst for the purpose of gaming the assessment process. So the same thing is undoubtedly would happen with the voting process, because that would even be easier to
No,
scale.
I disagree.
I
It's
disagree
too-
as well.
Token, you gotta have a token to vote
That's not
and the
a true
wallet.
statement.
All right, hey,
Why not?
Hey,
It all depends on
JP.
how you go about it.
Different system.
It depends
Just
on how you
please,
go about
please, everyone, please respect each other. We
Yeah,
don't have to cut each other. Give everybody the space to say what they want to say.
let's use the
Let them
hands.
finish.
Well, maybe
let
Chris
them
could
finish.
expand.
Kenrick, just let them finish their sentences and respect those who have their hands up already. And then,
Yeah,
there,
Felix,
please.
tell them.
I think there was a misunderstanding when I said Catalyst. I didn't mean IdeaScale. I meant actually voting in Catalyst. So the data is on chain. That cannot be gamed. You have to actually take part, register a wallet, and vote in Catalyst.
So am I up now?
Yes, Kenrick.
All right, so I'll just respond to that. I mean, you can register multiple wallets, so that's the concern. But let me just I was actually gonna make another point. I think what we're all trying to achieve is to try to increase the professionalism of the circle. And it looks like it may have to be part of a separate meeting, but I just want to let you know, I did write up the suggestions on allowing candidates to propose their reward for being a circle rep within bounds. And I laid out 3 different processes. One process would follow the Catalyst process as it is today. So that would be fairly easy to implement and maybe something we could do this round. And then the other 2 processes include sort of qualifying candidates with the vote, but then having some sort of auction to make sure that we're arriving at a reasonable reward, where candidates get to propose the reward, but the community also gets some assurance that we're not just blowing our budget on circle members. So you can take a look at that. I put a link in it, and when it's appropriate, happy to dive in and answer more questions about it.
Thank you, Kenrick. Chris.
Well, first of all, I want to really thank everybody for your input and to offer some options on what is possible. This is a subject that seems to be going around in circles a little bit. And I think we need to be thinking about how we really streamline the conversation now to focus on the requirements for getting to the election. Listen, what I was just saying to everybody that's joined us on this call that has a voting solution already, I think it's awesome that you're building all this. And I'm saying this as a caveat because for what I'm about to say. We already have a voting solution that we're already using. Why would we not use that? If it can be spun up in time and it has private voting enabled through zero knowledge proofs, it's already used by the community for things within the mandate of Catalyst. Why would we then use a separate tool which might still, be feasible to use, but has other features that are already implemented into the Catalyst voting app to sort of ensure security and privacy? That's where I'm just not trying. That's where I'm a little unsure as to how we're sort of chasing our tail a little bit. What's the advantage of going with a separate solution over what we've already got? And I just have to say that as almost as a yeah, and I guess it is hosted by IOG. It is on chain so much as it's on Jormungandr.
I'll wait my turn, but I have a response.
Okay. Leticia, do you have Chris?
So
Not done.
I just want to respond to just to one little bit. We're saying the community can't build on it. All we're trying to get to is an election for Catalyst Circle v4. That's what the purpose of this objective is, right? And listen, I'm all for experimentation. I really am. Please don't think that I'm not.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be doing what I do if I wasn't up for it. But we're just trying to get to an end result, which is we elect in some individuals to participate in Catalyst Circle.
there's two things I wanted to bring up. It was to earlier address something Anna Maria and race. So he mentioned, like, you know, the voting eligibility could be based on people who participated, and you said that that's verifiable and secure because people actually had to use the ADA as power to vote it, and that's basically what we're essentially saying as well. If we took an end of epoch snapshot without announcing, that's equivalent because it's one of the same. And the second thing is how I think, you know, yes, the voting already exists on the system, but it's somewhat centralized from my view, because IOG and Catalyst is controlling it and then ends up on a chain. And the way we've made our system is it's transparent from the get-go and it's auditable by third party. And then you can say, yeah, and it's very simple as well. Yeah, and it's wallet integration connected. You don't need dateless, you don't need a QR code, printing screen, a dedicated app. You can literally just show up on the website, scan a QR code, hit a button, say connect the wallet, boom, done.
But I can also tell that you've voted for this person, therefore I could influence your decision and coerce you into choosing you know, some hideous actor, bad actor.
That's
right?
politics.
Yeah.
Well, that is the decision. You know, you are trading anonymity, you know, the ability to vote anonymously for a better user experience, essentially.
Yeah.
We
Kenner,
get
yes,
your-
please.
Am I up?
Kenner.
You know, I'll just respond to Chris. I mean, I think as a participant, and I guess I should just speak for myself, but I'm deeply appreciative of everything IOG has done to make all this possible. And so I understand, and, you know, I support some of what Chris is saying in terms of they have a solution that is working and we could just continue using it. But part of the purpose of the whole Catalyst community is to enable the community to become self-governing. And so if a community member has built a voting app that can work, it's not going to be perfect, there's going to be things that still need to be developed, then that should be very, very high priority. And so if, you know, that I think that, you know, what I hear DripDropz saying is, yes, there's definitely things around security that still need development. Anonymity is important. You know, decentralized identities are important. These things will come in time. But if they're ready to do a vote, even if it's not perfect, we should support that. And we should try to make that happen. Because it advances the Catalyst community becoming more self-governing.
Next hand.
Totally second what Kenrick mentioned. I think this is the most important step then to say why better use DripDropz in this regard than the Catalyst voting app. Because I mentioned it was always Catalyst Circle should be or is a center of gravity which allows the community to bring ideas together, to coordinate them on the storing level and to figure out, hey, which tools do we really need, especially in this governance process then. And to keep it all at IOG, does the community not really allow to build improvements on it then? So to handle the governance building process step by step over, where we can ensure that the community governance is built from bottom up, from a bunch of different projects, but let's start with one first. let's figure out already what experience do we get out of it, and what can, and definitely keep in mind how can we improve it already for the next round then. And that falls perfectly in that that you want to open source the tool, right? So that we can say, hey, cool, which features, which whatnot do we want to support as circle enable later maybe. And with this, having a process in place which allows us to sensor step by step, okay, what tool do we actually really need?
What about in the timeframes as well? Like if and maybe this is another option. Sorry to jump in, but if there was a separate voting event that could be spun up, and then it could happen in between end of Fund 9 and beginning of Fund 10. And maybe that might give, you know, the voting solution, whichever solution is decided on by the circle to be used, a bit more opportunity to battle test some of the requirements. Reese, you're on mute, mate.
Sorry, I was just commenting on mute so that I didn't interrupt. But yeah, I thought that was the point,
hold it,
right?
Hold it, Quasar.
Sorry.
Quasar.
Thank you, JP. I mean, Pete, for running this meeting. You've done a fantastic job when it comes to using the voting app and Catalyst. Right now, to vote on IdeaScale proposals, you got to have the 500 ADA. You don't have to have 500 ADA to vote on circle reps. So that's going to throw a lot of traffic either into or away from the voting app. I don't care if you don't agree. Oh, JP, Pete's not done a good job. We want to use it, Chris, and I think we want to also make sure that there's multiple options to represent the diversity of the community and get more people involved. I've got more, but I'll come back on that.
All right, Reese.
Drive safe, Quasar. Yeah, so I thought the reason this whole conversation is happening was because we can't implement the Catalyst voting app this fund, which is when we need it, because the circle's ending imminently. 3.2 is ending. We need 4 coming in, right? So I thought that's the whole purpose of this discussion is Catalyst voting app isn't suitable right now. And so we need a solution that we can deploy and have functioning in time for a vote.
The voting app can be used. The voting app can be used. We can spin up a separate voting event.
Okay, so then does that mean that this whole conversation is like pointless? Because I thought that this wasn't, because we needed a solution to be put in place, but that just makes me question whether we're wasting people's time.
The takeaway from last circle meeting was, let's see whether Mike McNulty can join this working session so we can run through requirements and see whether it's feasible. And rather than me relaying information back to him from this session, it'd be great if he could join, but he wasn't able to. But the word from Mike in advance of this meeting is that if the circle wants to do an election, in my opinion, it's an exact left and shift of what we've already talked about. If we were to spin up another special voting event or separate voting event, some DevOps work to launch the configuration infrastructure, IdeaScale, Marek to load in the proposals, which we can side load in any case. It requires no new dev, just coordination.
Okay, so then shouldn't we just be getting that in place, right? Instead of trying to figure out or discuss other solutions.
What it feels like it could be, and sorry to jump in, Reese, but it seems like from what I'm getting from everybody or from most people here, is that the ability to be able to experiment with another solution is desirable, right? That's what I can take away.
And I think the main issue for that is the minimum requirements for voting in Catalyst, right? Which Quasar brought up, the 500 ADA, which I agree with. That's, although it's not necessarily a very high barrier, it is a barrier to entry, and that does create problems. And we want as much participation as possible, but we also just need something in place to run with, right? And I'm really grateful for everyone being here and being part of this discussion, because normally there's 5 of us talking about stuff, right? And now we have a lot of people in actively participating in it, and that's fantastic. But I also don't want to be wasting people's time. I'm up for using any given solution that we can deploy nice and fast and have implemented, but there's going to be problems with everything. So we need to come to a decision where we can balance the risks with the biggest amount of participation and the least friction possible. And if that's DripDropz, then let's do it, right? Let's try and reach a decision and that we can all agree on, and then we can, or at least most of us can agree on, and then we can go for it, right? So we don't waste anyone else's time discussing this.
Could I just quickly add a few?
Go ahead.
Yeah. Regard to the time, don't worry, we are passionate about Cardano and doing the things right. So this is nothing to us. Like, this is what we live for. At least I do anyway. So I'll speak for myself. I want to point at something why it was quite successful when DripDropz ran the vote that way. Why there was a lot of participation and people did it, because the barrier to entry was next to nothing. It was simple, easy, and people really cared about the questions that we proposed on there. That's why they showed up to vote. For example, when we started out, we had 100% of the token allocation to the community. After we built the product and it was successfully deployed and running, then we asked for a team allocation. And then that forced the people to think, okay, how much should we give it to the team? And when should we consider the distribution cycles, like how we do all these kind of things. So I want to put emphasis on that we can create this vote for you, but we cannot guarantee a good turnout or participation in those kind of things unless it's done properly from your end. Like, you got to get people excited. Why are they voting? Why does it matter? Get people know that what is the impact of this vote's going to be, and that we did that from day one, leading up to the vote, and saying, hey, have your say. This is going to determine the future of DripDropz. Similarly, you ought to be doing the same thing. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
And they gave us more than we thought we'd get, both in participation and in what our results were. They gave us more than we thought we would get.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a good.
It was valuable. Bottom line, it was valuable. We can offer that value to you guys if that's something you're looking for. So, that's what we came here today for. We came here as a team today to offer this as a solution for you guys.
Well, and we want to discuss solutions too. Like we understand that you guys aren't in a financial position to pay us, and we'd have to divert resources to help you guys. So, we're here for the community. So there's nothing in it for us here. So, I mean, beside, monetarily at least.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, but I'm sure everyone here actually appreciates that you guys taking the time and actually offering this service to us, because it's not really for us either. It is for the community, and then that's just you guys helping, and we really appreciate that, I'm sure. I see no reason not to go with it, right? It's easy. It's actually a way that we can increase participation, I think, because of the recognition of DripDropz. People in the community know it. And if they know that they don't have to turn up to a 1 hour or 2 hour call in the middle of the day, or in the morning in some parts of the world, or in the middle of the night in other parts of the world, then we can have a window of voting, just like we do with Catalyst, where more people can get involved, more people can have their say. And I don't see any real negative to that. Right now, we need more than 100 people voting. Provided we kind of hit that metric, then we've won, right? We've done something good. We've helped improve the process in some way. And so it's kind of a no-brainer to go with it, I think.
I think with the correct marketing and push early on before the launch, I think we can easily get 1,000 people interested in this.
Easily, yep.
Yeah, we're already starting to put content on Catalyst. So we just released a really good. Did we release that article yet?
We did. Yeah, we released the first how to register to vote article. So we're going to we have several more we have planned. So we're already in this process from our side, amplifying the Catalyst voice. That's already happening.
So technically we're okay. Operationally, what we need to circle back on is if we were to do something like this, the actual our marketing end of it, our content production, what we need to put out. So yeah, guys. I mean, we'd have to put it into a product planning meeting, but we could, laugh. That's really your call, brother. If you can move fast on this for them, I'm going to leave that to you, because there's not, the funding's not really there. So it's.
No, that's fine. In the interest of getting this something useful for the community, I think we can move fast on this, 1 to 2 weeks.
Okay, brother. All right, cool. But yeah, you guys figure it out and let us know, and we'll make it at product planning. So.
We appreciate it, Carl. Thanks, Lloyd.
And I don't mean to cut anybody else off real quick, but just I was watching my internal chat, and I would like to strongly recommend against one vote per wallet. It's highly gameable.
Yep.
Thanks, Kyle. Thanks, Lloyd. Thanks, Lev.
All right. Pleasure.
Yeah,
guys.
thank you
Take
guys.
care.
Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us. Cheers.
Cheers. Y'all want to go catch an alligator?
I'll watch you do it if you're on it, Quasar.
Yeah, can you do it one hand? All right, shut up. Chris, you're up.
Yeah, I just want to, I mean, listen, I'm all for experimentation. I just want to make it known, but I think to say it's a no-brainer to go with another solution when there's already a ready-made solution, it does warrant like some discussion, right? I mean, when we're talking about how many people can participate, well, again, you know, there are already thousands of people using that voting app. So that's the only point I want to count, just to be on balance with what you're saying, Reese.
I think the driver,
I see where you're coming from.
Chris, I really think the driver for all of this discussion about using DripDropz is purely the visibility, you know, the auditability of it. You know, it's everything that happens on Jormungandr is just, you know, it's a mystery. So but I agree with you also. I don't really have I'm much more concerned about the roles, you know, the circle roles than I am the voting, you know, like, because we've gone round and around for over an hour and a half here, or an hour and a half, and you know, it's just a thing. It's just a mechanic, you know, at the end of the day, and we're going to get gamed one way or the other.
Good, Kenrick.
Yeah. Lost my train of thought, I guess. Okay, this was it. So what is the decision process for deciding how the election is going to be run? Is it going to be the current circle then that's going to vote on deciding what the process is? Is that how this is decided, or is there a process for decision?
That's one goal for the Catalyst Circle, to define the election process for the next Catalyst Circles. So this is definitely in scope of the circle to define the next step.
Okay.
I also want to raise at some point, I know this is somewhat separate, but also relevant. There is movement on the code of conduct document, and there's a template with stuff in it, and I'm going to post it in the chat right now. There we go. Oh, I can't because my keyboard's
yeah. Here you go, man.
Oh,
I got you.
Chris starts to get pissed off.
Look at that. Look at that. Death by demo. All right, let me get that to you somehow. I know how I could do it. No, I don't know. I'm not sure how I can do it.
Just let's record how Chris gets really pissed.
That's something I do very get that frustrated with technology, but
you need
I'll figure it out.
Battery expense account.
I'll get it into, yeah, I mean, you know, if I can't even copy and paste that. But yeah, essentially, just to sort of support what Felix was saying, the final of the 4 key goals for the goals of the Catalyst Circle, well, the 4 key goals are: facilitate communication between different functional groups, provide a heads up when red lines are crossed within certain groups, suggest improvements on plans and processes that shape Project Catalyst, and define the election process for the next circle representatives. Those are always the 4 sort of initial pillars. Maybe they've changed from circle to circle somewhat, but those are the initial goals. So yeah, defining the election process for the next circle representatives was very much a key focus.
Yeah. Felix, you had something?
Chris, did you wanted to drop the link for the blog post you wrote last year?
I mean, it is, yeah, it is sort of in that, right?
Oh, okay. Wait, I have it also somewhere.
But I want to get these. Let me see whether I can.
This one? But yeah, again to the. I'm Huh?
Shit. Oh no, I can't hit return.
He gets really upset. Okay, can you hear me?
No,
Yeah.
I can do-
Yes.
Okay. Once back to the DripDropz voting, I'm definitely agree, Chris. The catalyst voting app would be the best solution for right now, but also very agree it wouldn't trigger the best reaction because it somehow only increase that, let's say, in this regard, in Catalyst Circle implements IoT tools, but having the Catalyst Circle as a community role as well should also mean that the circle should be able to introduce community tools to IHK. So in this regard, we wouldn't have this effect, which would be a little bit, I would say, miscoordination of resources because there's several projects out there already who are building on voting. And
unless there's a transition process, right? Unless that for the short term solution, we just go with what we've got, and as part of this transition and the catalyst sort of mentoring between representatives between rounds, we're laying all this out. These are the solutions that are also on the table. This is what we propose as the recommended process for next time, and then let the next representation make the decisions on it. Just trying to think about how we do things in good time, really.
I think in good time, the major thing we have already, we have the whole DripDropz crew, which is pretty all-stars team, to say anyway. They have amazing skills on board in that team. And they are there to offer a solution for free. So we can outsource a massive load of a really important topic directly to the community, which does very much facilitate communications between stakeholder groups. It would pretty much incentivize a really nice direction to the third point and to lay out major improvements for catalyst processes. And with the main goal to check the fourth point, to define an election process for the next one. So only with this initiative, we cover quite effective 3 of the main points which define the catalyst circle in its action. And having a beautiful first pilot also to say, hey, if there are already well-established projects within the community, how can we collaborate with them to build up the catalyst circle? Because we need the capacities who are actually there to build the tools and the platforms and what we need. And we see that we don't have the funds to hire whatnot companies for build us this or that tool, right? So we a little bit depend on pure community commitment. And when we have projects like that, I think the worst thing we can do is to ignore them because they want to participate. They are committed, they are engaged, since years, and they build the tools. So I think the biggest incentive for them as well, and the only incentive why they do it without any, let's say, asking for money, is because they believe very much in the thing. And with this, I think we trigger a really beautiful, let's say, reaction. Also shows, hey, okay, circle goes more into representative model and whatnot. We want to make it more human. And yeah, we want to build it with the community. That's a strong message, I think.
Quasar.
Good points by Wade.
Quasar, put his hand down, Steve.
Yeah, I had it up.
Oh.
I had it up. It's so hard to hold on to your train of thought when people when you're listening to other stuff. I think the circle is to assist in defining election protocols. Ultimately, I believe we can arrange where this decision for the election protocol is more than just the circle members, or we could isolate it to the circle representatives at this time. And I lost the other part of that.
All right, thank you. Steve.
So what I'm sitting here wondering, because I'm much more interested in other things about Circle, mostly the Circle roles. I mean, I'm really interested in that. I find it a much more difficult problem. But to kind of address what Felix is saying, and like I said, I think you make really good points, Felix. I really appreciate what you said. It's very eloquently put and true. But if we ride with that logic a lot, then why don't we just full blown just do it, right? let's use DripDropz, let's use Game Changer, let's use Voter, and let's use IdeaScale or the voting app. Let's use all of them, and let's see where people go to. Let's find out who they are as much as we can, and just really experiment with the experiment and see. You know, I don't see why we shouldn't. At this point, it's not the end of the world if it all blows up in our face. It's you know, we're not dealing with any money, you know, with this shit. It's more about who do the people want to see when they watch these fucking videos, you know? And I'm, you know, I'm telling you,
Reese, we want to see Reese without a shirt.
Yeah.
I have a really fundamental conflict with feeling like I'm helping to build the world's next financial operating system, and all I see is a bunch of white guys, you know? And I'm absolutely not somebody who thinks white guys are guilty for everything, but this is not representative.
Well, not everybody turned their camera on.
Did he steal your voice? No, I'm just kidding. Reese, what's up?
Yeah, I kind of agree with what Steve was saying there. Like, if we're gonna do it, screw it, let's do it. Let's go bloody crazy and see what the community decide. There's only so much harm that can be done, and the people who have harm done to them are just gonna have work to do for the circle at the end of the day. So, you know, if that there is such minimal damage that can be done that it's not worth spending any more time really talking about it. If there are reasonable tools ready, we can, and it's easy enough to implement, like let's just go for it, right? And let's see what the community decides. I think that's the fairest way of doing it, like deciding on what to do, right? We can go round and round and round discussing this, but there are other things for us to deal with. I agree, Steve, and we should try and move on if we can. And I'm not taking my shirt off.
Pull the shoulder down, like pull it off, show a shoulder.
What you got?
So we've got 20 minutes left in the meeting. Should we talk about the roles or groups, representations of circle?
Yeah, I think we could move there. We probably should nail down when we're gonna revisit this conversation and make some decisions. I know that the circle meeting is next week. Maybe that's just somebody needs to propose some structure into that meeting, and we'll take it from there. Is that good? Okay.
Yeah, I'll add that some conversations need to happen between now and next Wednesday, so we can have a little presentation at town hall and then some reiteration, because we got to talk about this repeatedly for people to get information on it if we're only dispersing it through town hall. So we're good.
Okay. So I'm gonna switch gears for the last bit. Felix, what do you got?
For the roles and the town halls, one interesting thing from the African town hall where we had the Catalyst Circle special version was really surprising. I asked the folks there, what do you think? Would you like to have a Catalyst Circle African representative circle? And no, they didn't want it at all. So that's pretty interesting feedback, because I expected it kind differently. But yeah, when it comes about roles and this more geographic specific circles, I'm not sure if this is actually really something what the local communities want.
Okay, so let's go into that. I mean, why no, right? I mean, why no?
Because the main answers to it, that the most people felt really well within the existing roles as a proposer or funded proposer, as a PA or a VPA. And I think mostly in areas, when you think about areas which are a little bit more, let's say, poor, there, let's say everybody's proud to say, hey, I'm a European, or I'm from the United States, because it speaks for itself, right? When you go to local communities which are not that wealthy, and you want to state them with that not that wealthy status, it puts something on the proudness of the people already. They don't want to be seen as the African. They don't want that the people throw on them, yeah, you are the Africans and you are poor and you need money. Like, yeah, we have this little stupid stereotype sometimes, right?
This is, I mean, this is, I think we all need to stretch, right? You know, like I think we're this is a huge stretch for me and my personality, right? And I, you know, we need to hear from Africans. We need to hear from all the different Asians, right? We need to hear from the Latin American community. We need to, because self-sovereign identity, right? Their solutions are not going to be the same as North American solutions. And we need to know, right? We need to know what they think about it, how they feel about it. And you know, if they feel like they're worried about being identifiable, you know, then they should be one of us, right? Because we're identifiable too, you know, and you just kind of have to live with that. I have to live with the fact that it didn't matter how good my German got, I still was clearly an American, right? And that's just, you know, that's just the luck of birth. You know, you have to deal with that. And I really feel like we should encourage them, all of these other parts of the world, to get involved in spite of where they come from. If they feel like that's a hindrance, they need to get over it, just like we have to get over it. But that's just, I mean, that's just me. I'm not speaking for anybody. I'm not speaking for Mercy. I'm not speaking for funded proposers. That's just the way I feel about it.
Thank you. Quasar, you got some? Let's go work through the hands. You sparked a lot of thoughts, Steve. Thank you.
Well, quickly, since there's a town hall, I mean, I feel like there's an opportunity to at least help shape the conversation around the fact that there are town halls. Anywhere there's a town hall, whether it's a circle or not, I think town halls almost should be a role at the seats or at the table, or a steward at tables, you know, like I understand they don't want to be identified as African. Everybody's a you know, we're diehard Cardano fans. That's all that matters. If there's a town hall there, that town hall is getting a lot of feedback and it's valuable to the entire community.
Yeah. Kenrick.
Yes, I share a lot of Steve's thoughts on this, and I had actually brought that up when I was a circle member myself. However, I also appreciate kind of the feedback that maybe that's not the best way to define the roles on the circle, that what is needed is to kind of make sure that we're running the Catalyst program that's an inclusive, diverse way. So opening the voting process will help. Running these different town halls helps. But then maybe we need, like, if there are segments of the community that we feel aren't adequately represented, maybe we need to kind of look at how we can support them, but still maintain roles that have clear objective functions in the way we run Catalyst, rather than trying to define roles by different geographies around the world. I think, and that's kind of what I hear from Felix saying too, that that may be part of your identity, but that's not necessarily the part of the identity that makes sense to be represented on the circle.
Heard. Yeah. Reese, you done here? All right. Yeah. Reese, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree. We can't force participation, but it should definitely be encouraged of the other communities, of the other town halls, to be participating. Everyone has ideas. They're all having discussions all over the world. We can encourage people as much as we can to actively try and participate and join the circle, and we should be open to that. We can't force it at the end of the day, but what we can do is our best to encourage people to actually join. And I just knocked my mouse, sorry about that. But I think we kind of owe it to the community to at least try and get people in, not just for the sake of it, but as representation. And it was actually showed in the survey that we put out that people were requesting representation from, they said specifically the Eastern Hemisphere. I guess that differs depending on where you are in the world, but I think we kind of know what that means, right? The other half of the world should be represented more. They should have a voice in Circle. And so we should try and at least encourage them to take part in that.
Thank you. Next, Felix.
One thing, maybe what might be the easiest solutions for figuring out the roles is right now we look on the Catalyst Circle election like on proposals, but maybe challenge setting proposals fit better. What happens if we say, hey, we assume the best from the people which nominates themselves? I assume, for example, that DC Spark is fit enough to say, hey, you should be able to represent the group, whatever you want to name it. If you call them developer, if you want to call them CIP editors, whatnot, go for it. If there's another person, a really successful SPO who does a lot for the SPO ecosystem, says, yeah, I want to, let's say, represent those people, then enough people will vote for him. Actually, we not set up the roles. We invite people to nominate themselves, and we also invite them to nominate themselves for which role, but they have to define the role, which allows us then to say, take the superpower a little bit from challenge proposals to say we are able to identify really key topics. Because right now we have this assumption that the groups we have are the right groups, but we see already, hey, we need adjustments, but we have the superpower process with the challenge already, where we are able to identify over time frame, hey, what are really relevant topics? And out of them, then you can create categories and whatnot. So maybe to implement the Catalyst challenge setting to the voting. Like this, we don't set any roles, and we will have some extremely insightful experiences and outcomes from this.
Yeah, Koizo.
If we're sticking to for what I'm about to say, focusing on current representation with functional roles, tool makers and maintainers, and PAs, DPAs, and then bonded proposers, I feel like that specific arrangement segregates the representation, and I don't think that the groups have had a opportunity to fully explore the communication between the groups where some of these decisions are made collectively. And I think that's something that needs to be addressed. And it is one of the goals of the circle to facilitate communications between the functional roles. So the way that it's happening right now, and from a historical point of view, the circle hasn't had a really good chance to really explore this open, innovative, collaborative, and communication-driven approach. And adding additional roles outside of functional roles or functional groups does pose some issues or so opportunities and issues that we need to explore. I'll follow up more in the chat in Catalyst Discord about this.
Say your piece, Quasar. It's okay, man.
Yeah, keep going.
Yeah, we're listening.
I know I lost my train of thought.
Yeah.
Like funded proposers, the changes to the part of this meeting. I thought we were going to talk about the code freeze to make adjustments in IdeaScale. The proposal acts up process in IdeaScale was changed this round, and most of the people that I've spoken to had no idea that that was a change that had been pushed through. And I'd like to find the documentation or the feedback and see how that went, because that helps us define ways that changes can be made or suggested to IOG, and also ways that we get their buy-in to these suggested improvements. And we really need to go back and I think redefine what toolmakers and maintainers is doing. What is funded proposers doing? No one's addressing, you know, the proposer that's not funded, those without, you know, less than 500 data not being represented, and whose challenge team's going to, like, where is that? So, and how do we start actually auditing this stuff? That's what I've got. That's it. I'm good. One on me.
I thought you represented people under 500 data, Quasar. I mean, seriously, I did.
Yeah. I mean, I do. I'd like to, and that's why I'm saying voting through the Catalyst app on the circle is not necessarily the best way, because people with less than 500 data aren't going to download
Sure.
the app.
Yeah. I get it. I get it.
Yeah. And even with that, Steve, thanks for bringing it up, because it does, it confirms that my need to fully understand all of the roles. And I think it's time to go back and really look at the roles, because in CCv3 election, no one applied or, you know, submitted a statement for toolmakers and maintainers, and that's why that the election itself was delayed. You know, are toolmakers and maintainers actually maintaining Catalyst and IdeaScale, or are they building community tools that aren't specifically geared towards defining the process of Project Catalyst and each fund, or are they?
That's actually not true. There have been several signups for toolmakers and maintainers, and in the election there was a tie between both. And it was between George Lovecraft and Joey Kesher, and Joey gave Kesher, George gave Joey the step forward. So
yeah, there was also platform statements that were removed. You know, there's a lot of things with the voting for CCv3 that should be looked at internally or with the group or a community.
I don't know what you uncovered, but yeah, that's interesting. I'd love to see a well-written report on how you think CCv3 election went down. Chris.
I guess a few things to cover, a couple of topics. I'm certainly seeing that there's a great opportunity to expand the scope of the roles that are in Circle. It does feel like it's just 5 or 6 people, and then IOG representation doesn't really make for much of a representative group. I really like the ideas of, you know, educators and sort of community builder type roles. Make a lot of sense, right? My suggestion is that rather than sort of just mentioning these things on a Zoom call, we should be trying to maybe table all of the potential options, as many as possible, and then maybe give like an elevator one-line description on what it is that role is and what they stand for, even if it's just a hypothesis as an assumption. It's a good starting point anyway, and we can kick the tires around it. On the point of sort of documentation, code freeze and that kind of stuff, yeah, I mean, listen, we can absolutely make sure that throughout Fund 10 and, you know, certainly in the lead up to Fund 10, that there is a good amount of socializing and awareness building, and then a hard cutoff date, right? I think we can all agree to that. What we should do for next time during the meeting, rather than the working group meeting, is just have a look at the timeline that's being proposed for Fund 10, and then we know what guidance and work back plan we need to figure out for that. Thirdly, just one other thing. You probably haven't seen it, but in the Circle meetings channel in the Circle Slack, I've just put a link. I've literally copy and paste a link. That is the Circle That is the Circle Code of Conduct template. So I can only make it commenter. So please feel free to comment. But all of the statements for do's and don'ts, that's what was discussed and voted on, and then that's as it is. And you'll see that at the bottom of the document, there are a couple of sections that we will want to get on the agenda to discuss. But I've done my best to kind of get it into the shape that it needed to be, having been kicked around between us and legal and whatever in the community as well. So I think it's in a pretty good shape now. We just need to bottom out the last little bits.
Okay. All right. Can I just jump ahead of Quasar there, Chris, and just lock in on what you said about Fund 10? Is the goal with Fund 10 to run it with the Lace wallet and the voting integrated into that, and that the voting is going to be live on mainnet, or are we thinking and saying, or the plan is that we're going to continue to use IdeaScale and the voting app as it's been?
IdeaScale isn't going to change anytime soon. The voting center is hopefully going to be ready, as I understand it from the timelines, ready for Fund 10 voting.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, Lace wallet again. There's a roadmap there also. So the important thing is the vote center is, as far as I'm aware, from everything that I've seen so far, there's no showstoppers that would suggest. And if we are going to delay the start of Fund 10 for for whatever reason, like we're using cooldown periods quite a bit now, obviously that gives a little bit more buffer room to get vote center ready. Obviously, if we start later, then the vote will take place later.
Okay, that'd be great.
All right. Well, last question for Fund 10: could we potentially do it the way we are right now with challenge teams, and then also do a carve out for an additional 12 million for Lovegrove's category option? Could we run 2 and maybe touch on that 25 million fund potentially, Chris? Thank you. We'll do that.
I think, yeah, in terms of sort of the budgets, it's fixed as it is now. Now, there is a discussion to be had, I think, around this idea of separate voting events and how those take shape, and then what they sort of constitute, and what other votes within the scope of Catalyst we could be expecting to come down the pipes. And I'd like to think that Fund 10 is a really good flag in the sand to try and get some of that up and running. So yeah, there's a few discussions that are in flight. What I'm suggesting is that if we go with DripDropz or whatever solution we decide, I'm certainly in favour with it, of course. It would be great to sort of make sure that the rationale is sound, right? And that, we don't have a scenario where it seems strange that we're not using the voting app when we could just use the voting app. And then, depending on if there is, I guess, some other sorts of vote decision that needs to be made, perhaps. Again, there's a reason to be able to spin up Jormungandr and the solution to accommodate that. But again, I don't think we're going to get to that now because we're obviously over time. But I think that the point is Fund 10 is likely to have maybe a slight delay, and that's going to give us a bit more time to get other things in a row. That's not been signed off yet, but I'm just giving you a heads up.
Wonderful. Is there a deadline for signing off on Fund 10 changes or implementations on that?
Documentation, or like what we're talking about with?
Yes, what we're talking about.
Or the actual fund and the fund budget and when it starts and all this.
Well, a deadline for any types of changes on the code freeze, and then if you know when it'll actually start, that'd be cool. But if not, that's okay. And I'd like to say that I am not a fan of the category option that's been put forth. However, I'm open to explore it. But
I mean, just on the point of categories, I've said to George, or we've suggested and recommended to George and Nadia and Tommy to discuss, consolidate efforts, make I'm personally in favour of categorizing things, but not to the detriment of experimentation, right? Like there needs to be checks and balances. Like I can imagine tech experiments scale up, community education and outreach, and then something else. I think we can experiment with it, but ultimately you guys in the community need to come with a coherent proposal on how that sort of looks, and we all need to agree on it, right?
Yeah.
Wonderful. There's a lot of data in the DApps products and integrations that will provide insights into the categories as well. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Sweet. Last two, Reese and Kenrick, final words, and I gotta shut this down. I am late for other stuff.
Yeah, sorry, Peter. So one of the things that I wanted to go through, like, this is a great discussion, right? And I hope we can just kind of figure it out, like everyone mull it over and have a good think for the next meeting, and we can have a proper talk about it. I think setting out hypotheses for categories is a good option, and just making as many potential choices as possible is a great way to move. I really wanted to go through the survey results today, but it doesn't matter. I'll just put it on the agenda for next week. I think there's a lot of insight to be had from that. I'll link it. I'll just stick it in Slack. Kenrick's already stuck his eyes on it and gave me a kick up the backside, which I appreciate, because I've added things that I've missed, which just should have been there from the start. So thank you, Kenrick. I really appreciate you spending the time to look over it, but I'll share it with you guys in Slack, and if you can all have a look through it as well, I'd really appreciate it, and we can have a proper talk about it next time. But thank you so much for today, guys. I think the discussion has been positive. Even if we've been stuck on the voting, it's still moving things in the right direction.
Yeah.
I'm a born critic, Priest. I hope it was constructive.
Yeah, don't worry. I don't take offense to anything you say, mate. Yes, I appreciate it.
All right. I just had a quick question. I saw something in the chat about this circle going through like December or January, and whereas I thought it was more like August and September when this circle would end, and then
He misspoke. He mistyped.
yeah, fine, okay, all right, yeah, okay, fine. All right. Great to be with you all. Appreciate the invitation, and enjoy the day.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. See y'all
Thanks,
around.
Peter.
Just one.
See you later,
just one
guys.
final question. Just
Oh,
guys. Before you
Chris
go,
got one.
Sorry. One last thing. Can I just make a recommendation? Next week we have more of a discussion about what the voting process and tooling is going to be, and then by the next meeting we make a decision, or we decide next week. Up to you guys, but those are the two options that I sort of see on the table. Discussion, mull it over, and then decide the following week, or discuss and vote next week.
I'd rather say let's decide next week already, because we need each single day. Then there are still some things which have to figure out, and there's more time we can buy beforehand. A little bit is better for us.
That's how I ended up getting married 3 times. I'm just saying.
And I'm on
But we can do that. We can do that.
We do need a finish line for this discussion, though. We do need to start.
Thank you for pushing that, Chris. Peace out, everyone.
Yeah.
That's good.
Thanks.
Have a great week. See you soon. Ciao, ciao.